It is a wet and blustery day today, and I'm going to be exploring some of the waterfalls around Wessenden Moor, specifically the ones that lie between Blakeley Reservoir and Wessenden Reservoir, starting with the one behind me, which is called Small Clough. The approach route to Small Clough is to come down this path that comes down beside Blakeley Reservoir. Going to cross the river here and then start scrambling. This is what Small Clough looks like, near to where it flows into the river, meaning it's not time to get in and time to walk up alongside it for a bit. About 50 metres up from the river, this looks like a reasonable place to try to begin. If you enjoy getting poked in the eye by bracken and Molinia, then Small Clough at its start could definitely be the place for you. As I'm going a little higher up, there are no puzzles to solve, but you do have to scrabble your way up, and is it my imagination or is it getting a little less overgrown? And this is what it looks like as you're approaching the top. So that was Small Clough, about 15 minutes of moderate scrambling, 0.5 grade at most. It's winter, so there's a little bit of water in it. You don't constantly have your face full of vegetation. Other seasons of the year, less water, more plants. Give it a miss. Now it's time for an upgrade from Small Clough. So behind me is something that's not marked on Ordnance Survey maps, but on other maps is called Blake Clough. Walked along what's below me, Wessenden Brook, and then just cross over Wessenden Brook to start scrambling up. This is how Blake Brook begins. Deep pools and cascades right from the start. Here's the first of what might be called the waterfalls along Blake Clough, round about 8 feet tall and stepped. There were around about half a dozen decent cascades in that first section of Blake Brook, from pools that were anything up to waist and even chest deep. Now the Blake Clough is opening out a little bit, and may make more sense to just walk along the brook rather than in it, even though there isn't much of a path. The last half mile or so has just been pretty tedious, hard going because there really isn't a path. Essentially you can get into the brook and go very slowly. Now we've reached a section which is a bit sort of shall I shan't I, maybe worth getting into the brook, maybe not. The path that circles Blake Clough has now come down to the brook, and we've reached a point where there is a weir, which will either be simple to get up or pretty lethal depending on how slippery it is. Above the weir, this waterfall about 15 foot high, 2 possible channels. The one on the left looks more climbable if at all. The left channel was just about climbable, but I would rate it a grade 2 and nicer done with a rope hanging up from the top. As we carry on, there's a cascade and then a waterfall. I should have mentioned that the weir was perfectly easy to get up, lots of grip, and now come up to the smaller waterfall above. The main waterfall maybe about 8 feet high, with a set of steps and various routes up. Above that pair of waterfalls, Blake Brook flattens off, but there are some further waterfalls marked on the map off on tributaries to one side, so I'm going to go and investigate that. Here's the waterfall that's marked on the map of the left fork off of Short Grain. It's very overgrown, and only for those who want to tick off every possible thing on the map. If you make your way up Short Grain, which is branching off left from Blake Brook, you'll get to this set of rocky cascades and then a waterfall. Here is the pool and the waterfall on Short Grain. The waterfall itself is pretty heavily underhung, but I just about managed to scrabble my way up there. This is marked as another waterfall on the Ordnance Survey map, just slightly to the left off the upper parts of Blake Brook. It will not take a particularly keen-eyed observer to see that it is all fall and no water, maximum of a 5-minute little rocky scramble. The last of the waterfalls on Blake Brook is preceded by a few rocky cascades, and then here is the pool and waterfall itself, maybe about 8 feet high, and although there's a big overhanging rock there, you can just about pull yourself up on the left hand side. So that was Blake Clough. There were some quite nice waterfalls and cascades, but the key problem about Blake Clough is they're all so far apart. It certainly isn't worth coming up all this way to the upper parts of the Clough to do the 4 waterfalls that are marked higher up. What I'd suggest if you did want to do it would be to do the initial set of cascades, waterfall that are close to the bottom and near Wessenden Brook, then climb yourself up onto the path that circuits around the Clough and walk up to the weir and the grade 2 waterfall that's there, do that and then go home. Not worth really doing much more than that. Having skipped ahead to colder but drier conditions, I'm now at the third and middle of the 3 cloughs that run up above Wessenden Brook, and this is Blakeley Clough, which at least on the map promises to have more waterfalls than either Small Clough that way or Blake Clough that way. To enter into Blakeley Clough, you can either walk across Wessenden Brook, or just to your left here is a rather conveniently placed footbridge you can cross over and then jump down from that wall. It's the first of the waterfalls along Blakeley Clough, maybe about 10 feet tall, and my initial thoughts are that Blakeley Clough is a bit of a sort of halfway house between Small Clough and Blake Clough, in that it's more overgrown than Blake Clough, less overgrown than Small Clough, and the flow of water is about halfway house in between. Second set of initial thoughts are that coming out on a really cold day is maybe not such a great thing to do. You can see all of those icicles, and above the waterfall what looks suspiciously like Death's Scythe. Not a good omen. First waterfall was very straightforward because it's just a series of easy steps, though expectedly, given the fact that there are icicles hanging each side, the water is fresh. Here I think maybe the second of the waterfalls marked, smaller, only about 7 foot, but a bit of overhang at the top. Like the first one, that second waterfall was grade 0.5 at most, and now gives way to a set of cascades. Here we are, up close and personal with the next of the waterfalls along Blakeley Clough. About a 15-foot total drop, and there is such a severe overhang at the top. If you have the upper body strength of a gorilla, you could probably swing yourself over that. If, like me, you have the upper body strength of a bull, then it's not going to happen. And fortunately, there's some easy escape routes out to the side. Here's what I assume to be the third of the waterfalls that's marked on the OpenStreetMap map. A knee-deep pool, overall about 15 feet high, but too difficult. The slab on the bottom half is just covered in algae, and then that segues into a huge chunk of overhung rock that's overhung the whole length. You can make your way up, just about sort of crawl your way up there, and then along and round up there, but in some ways you might as well just walk around it more easily, I suspect. I'm now at the point where the Pennine Way crosses over Blakeley Brook, and if you look ahead, the contour lines are thinning out, and there are no more waterfalls shown. That little fella there definitely doesn't count. I'm now about 100 feet or so above where the Pennine Way crosses over Blakeley Brook, and as you can see behind me, it's become overgrown and really not worth pursuing. Overall, Blakeley Clough, I'm afraid, was kind of disappointing. There were a couple of 0.5 waterfalls just at the very start, and then the two larger waterfalls looked nice, but they were just far too overhung to climb up. So really not worth coming up this one. Overall verdict on these three cloughs that rise above Wessenden Brook here to the south of Marsden: if you're in the area, small clough, quick little scramble. Blakeley Clough, well, if you're on the Pennine Way, you could drop in and hop up the first two waterfalls. Blake Clough, slightly better at the beginning, set of those cascades, and then you've got the Weir and the Grade 2 waterfall a little bit further on. But overall, certainly not worth a special trip, and I'd give the overall three of them, 5 out of 10 rating in total. Finally, here's an overview map of the three cloughs that lie in West Yorkshire, more accurately Kirklees, south of Marsden. Blue for the walk-in from the parking spot on Binn Road, red for the scrambles up Small, Blakeley and Blake Cloughs. In each case, returning pretty much the way you came, though using nearby paths available along Blakeley Clough and the lower parts of Blake Clough. Reverse your inbound route to get back to Binn Road. Further details are given in the text description underneath the video.